Deep in the black forest, secrets whispered among the trees. Shadows danced, hiding truths best left buried. The air hung heavy with magic, potent and perilous. Something wicked this way comes. A lone cottage stood in the heart of the forest. 7 dwarfs, their faces etched with worry, scurried inside. Their world, once filled with laughter, now echoed with fear. What became of their beloved Snow White? The answer, like a venomous snake, lay coiled in the heart of the forest. A tale of betrayal, darker than the darkest fairy tale, awaited. Snow White, they called her, skin white as snow, lips red as blood, hair black as ebony. But her beauty hid a heart heavy with sorrow. She sought refuge in the dwarf's cottage, but peace eluded her. The dwarfs, each a peculiar character, welcomed her with open arms, or so she thought. Their kindness felt forced, their smiles strained. Did they harbor secrets behind their jovial facades? Snow White couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of eyes peering from the shadows. The forest held its breath, waiting for something to happen. One day, a peddler woman arrived, her basket laden with trinkets and treats. Her eyes, sharp as shards of glass, settled on Snow White. In her hand she held a single glistening apple, red as sin. Snow White, tempted by the apple's sweetness, took a bite. The world spun, darkness closing in like a predator. The last thing she saw was the peddler woman's face, contorted in a mask of triumph. The dwarfs returned to find Snow White lying still, the poisoned apple by her side. Grief overwhelmed them, or so it seemed. Their tears felt staged, their sorrow a carefully crafted act. Unbeknownst to Snow White, the dwarfs possessed a secret. Hidden in their minds, deep beneath the earth, lay a magic mirror. It whispered truths, revealed secrets, and held the key to their strange behavior. Each night the dwarfs consulted the mirror, their faces grim. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" they chanted. The mirror's answer fueled their fear, driving them to desperate measures. Snow White, the mirror declared, possessed a magic the dwarfs craved, but it could only be harnessed through a terrible sacrifice. Section 5. A web of deceit. The dwarfs' kindness, Snow White realized, was a sham. They hadn't taken her in out of the goodness of their hearts. They wanted something from her, something dark and dangerous. The poisoned apple, the elaborate show of grief, it was all a charade. But for what purpose? The answer, Snow White knew, lay within the heart of their secret mine. She wasn't dead, not entirely. The magic within her, the same magic the dwarfs desired, kept her tethered between life and death, a prisoner in her own fairy tale. Section 6. The Hunter's Confession. In the heart of the forest, as the sun dipped below the horizon, shadows stretched long and ominous. The air was thick with an unsettling quiet, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Word of Snow White's death reached a huntsman, a man who had long been a servant of the forest, skilled in tracking and survival. The news was delivered by a grim-faced messenger, whose presence alone spoke volumes of the gravity of the situation. He had been hired by the evil queen to kill Snow White and bring back her heart. The queen's orders were clear and merciless, her eyes cold and unyielding as she handed him the contract. The huntsman knew that failure was not an option, but neither was the act of killing an innocent. Racked with guilt, he decided to confess his deed to the dwarfs. The weight of his actions bore heavily on his conscience, and he could no longer carry the burden alone. He sought out the dwarfs, hoping for some form of redemption, or at least understanding. He revealed that he hadn't had the heart to kill an innocent girl. The image of Snow White, pure and untainted, haunted him. He couldn't bring himself to extinguish such a light from the world. Instead, he brought the queen the heart of a wild boar. The deception was his only way to protect Snow White, a desperate act to save a life while risking his own. He believed Snow White to be alive and well, hiding somewhere in the vast forest. The forest, with its endless nooks and crannies, was the perfect sanctuary for someone fleeing from danger. The dwarfs listened to his tale, their faces unreadable. Each word he spoke seemed to hang in the air, heavy with the weight of truth and consequence. The hunter had unwittingly given them the missing piece of the puzzle. His confession was the key to understanding the larger picture, the final clue that made everything fall into place. Their plan had worked, but at what cost? The dwarfs now faced a new dilemma, the realization that their actions had set into motion a series of events with unforeseen consequences. They pondered the future, knowing that the battle was far from over and that the true test of their resolve was yet to come. Section 7. The Dwarfs' Secret. The dwarfs weren't inherently evil. They were driven by fear and desperation. The magic mirror had revealed a prophecy. Their beloved mine, their livelihood, would soon dry up. Only the purest of hearts, infused with ancient magic, could replenish the mine's power. Snow White, with her inherent magic, was the key. But the ritual required a life for a life. They believed the poisoned apple would only weaken Snow White, allowing them to harness her magic. The hunter's confession revealed a horrifying truth. They had misjudged the apple's potency. Section 8. A Glimmer of Truth. Trapped in her death-like slumber, Snow White could hear whispers. The dwarfs, consumed by guilt and fear, argued amongst themselves. Their words, sharp as shards of glass, cut through the haze of her poisoned sleep. She learned of their desperation, their misguided attempt to save their livelihood. Their intentions, though misguided, weren't entirely malicious, but their actions had consequences. A glimmer of hope sparked within Snow White. If she could somehow break free from the poison's hold, she could help them. But first, she had to wake up. Section 9. The Final Confrontation. As the dwarfs argued, a figure emerged from the shadows of the forest. The evil queen, her heart black with envy and rage, had discovered the dwarfs' deception. She had come for Snow White's heart, and she wouldn't leave empty-handed. The dwarfs, realizing the gravity of their actions, knew they had to protect Snow White, even if it meant facing the wrath of the queen. A battle ensued, magic clashing